As a state, we are so uniquely positioned in so many ways. Our geography, our placement in the country, and our history positions us to be the state that propels energy efficiency as an industry. Jennifer Granholm. Having encamped near the portage 2 leagues up the river, we resolved to winter there, as it was impossible to go farther, since we were too much hindered and my ailment did not permit me to give myself fatigue. Jacques Marquette, 1673. Frenchman Louis Joliet, accompanied by his father Jacques Marquette, would become the first non-Native Americans to explore what would become the state of Illinois. The two Frenchmen traveled across and made camp by an overwhelmingly large mound next to the Des Plaines River 40 miles south of Lake Michigan in some of the Midwest's most resourceful land. Charles Reed, along with Robert Stevens and David Maggard, would be the first men to inhabit this early part of the state of Illinois in 1830. Before 1830, the Potawatomi Indians had lived on the land for several years. Although the relationship between the Potawatomi and white settlers was friendly, tensions flared when the Sioux and Fox Indians relocated west of the Mississippi River and eventually erupted into the Black Hawk War of 1832. You can't begin to understand this city's importance without first understanding its geography. The Des Plaines River, Mount Joliet, the limestone, all of it was the crucial foundation to establishing this city as an industrial powerhouse during the 19th century. Charles Reed, the first inhabitants of this early north part of Illinois, would build a log cabin along the Des Plaines River. Any person looking to start a community, of course, would choose to live by a body of water for both access to clean drinking water and its use in travel along the rivers. James B. Campbell, a businessman from Connecticut, would lay the plans to establish a village in 1834 along the Des Plaines River. This town laid out would become the thriving town of Joliet. Before Chicago would boom into a megalopolis, Joliet would provide as a crucial agent in its creation throughout the 19th century. In 1836, Joliet, as it was originally called, would host its first election for county officials and commissioners. And in 1852, would be officially a city. In 1837, construction over the massive I&M Canal would begin, and Joliet's future was beginning to unfold prosperously. The massive mound that was Mount Joliet, that Louis and Joliet and Father Jacques Marquette cataloged in their journals, had become a massive deposit of gravel to be mined for the Joliet Mound Drain and Tile Company. Mount Joliet would be filled with limestone, clay, and gravel, which would be traded all across the Midwest and Chicago, and would physically be the building blocks of Joliet. In less than 50 years, the mound that once stood over 60 meters tall would be reduced to nothing as companies mined away clay and gravel for buildings. Mount Joliet became nothing. Mount Joliet's deposits and the limestone deposits laying around where present-day Collins Street is not only supplied to build Joliet, but a lucrative business that bolstered Joliet's young economy. The founders of Joliet were not aware of Joliet's rich deposits of resources, which obviously allowed for Joliet to spring up out of nothing. Of course, the people of Joliet could build their homes and stores with limestone and clay found within the city limits, but they could also manufacture stone for all other booming cities around Chicago. Soon Joliet was involved in supplying limestone to Chicago and the many outlying towns across the state of Illinois. The Des Plaines River and the I&M Canal allowed for great trade routes across the state of Illinois and the Midwest, but it was the Rock Island Railroad that allowed for a dramatic increase in exports for the town of Joliet. Joliet was booming with its limestone and clay being shipped to Chicago daily, and the town had a fast-growing economy that was not slowing down. With the Davidson Quarry and many other businesses growing, Joliet was becoming bigger. When talking about the resources available in Joliet, none have had the effect that steel has upon the city both physically and financially. We're talking about a business that is still existing and thriving today in Joliet. In 1869, investors from Chicago saw the potential that Joliet had for the manufacturing and distribution of iron. The Joliet location offered several notable advantages, such as the advantage of stone, coal fields nearby, and transportation by both water and rail. Soon, Joliet would see its largest amount of growth in its short history as the steel, limestone, clay, and other business began to mass produce for distribution across the Midwest. By 1880, Joliet would be a sizable town in Illinois and have an even higher wage paid to its employees by the city of Chicago by $68. During this time too, Joliet would hit its peak of growth at 43%. Joliet's success over the years and the ability to grow and progress can be connected to the abundance and availability of several resources within the city lines. Of course, other towns had developing economies, but being that Joliet today is the fourth most populous city in Illinois, it is easy to infer that its geographical location played the most crucial role in it. As of the 2010 census, Illinois population is just under 150,000 residents, 50,000 more than the year 2000. Even today, Joliet is one of the nation's fastest growing towns, more than 150 years old after it was planned to build in 1830. Without Joliet's resources of limestone, clay, and steelworks, Joliet could never have seen the growth it's seen over the century and even today. The steel industry is still one of Joliet's largest industries and provides hundreds of jobs while also providing a sizable export for the town. Though the steel industry is the largest export, the Des Plaines River and the I&M Canal have provided great trade routes over the water to both Chicago and the Midwest. When Louis Joliet and Father Jacques Marquette made camp at Mount Joliet, they never realized the abundance of resources that would allow for the town of Joliet to be created.